You live now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Money Mondays on the Daily Huddle today. We missed our drum roll, so if any of you guys are a drummer, you can unmute yourself and give
Live now.
Oh, a thank little you. Inside thank drum you. Roll. Good morning, Well, you'll have to mute yourself because I Welcome to can't mute you. So anyway, all right, I'm Kimberly. So good to see you guys today again on our Money Monday, and I want to welcome to the show a good friend of mine and Dr. Dianna Joseph and Shawn Wroblewski. I can't even see it, right? I don't know. Because that's what you put in my email. But anyway, okay, so I want to kind of tell you a little bit about who they are. So today we're going to talk about the true costs of pet ownership. And if any of you guys have pets, you know that there are costs associated with pets, right? So Dr. Dianna Joseph graduated from North Carolina State, has been practicing veterinary medicine for over 20 years. Dr. Joseph's mantra has always been every patient, every client, every time, and the rest will follow. This is apparent by her loyal following of clients who trust her with all of their pets' needs from birth to old age. She has witnessed firsthand the dramatic changes in vet medicine over the years, with quality preventative care leading the way. Dr. Joseph lives in Atlanta with her husband, son, and 5 dogs. Congratulations to you. Her favorite breed is wire hair dachshunds. I used to have 5 dogs too, so I know. I know. Shawn entered veterinary medicine over 6 years ago with an extensive background in operations, client relationship management, and employee development. She embraces the philosophy of quality medicine over all else, that she has parlayed into happy clients and healthy pets, along with significant revenue growth and client retention. Shawn strives to educate pet parents and lead them on the path to a long and healthy life for their four-legged family friends. Shawn lives in Marietta with her husband and 5 children and 2 cats. Her favorite breed is the Pomeranian. So, thank you to both of you guys for joining us today. Shawn knows that I'm definitely a fellow pet lover. So when we talked about, what can you talk about on the Daily Huddle? She's like, let's talk about the cost of pet ownership. And I was like, that's honestly a really great conversation because we don't think about it, right? Like we show up and they have this cute little puppy or this cute little kitty or something like that, right? At the pet store. And then we get them, we bring them home, and then we're like, oh, wait, what did we do? So today that's what we're going to talk about. So who wants to start? Let's talk about just adding a pet to your family in general, and some of the things to talk about, or some of the things to think about.
Well, it's all depending on there. I always say there is nothing like a free pet. And I had a client the other day, which struck me. She said it's a privilege to own a pet, because we were going through her estimate on what it was going to cost to do the wellness for her old dog. And I thought that was really a really good point, that not everybody realizes that. So it depends on where you get the pet, what kind of pet it is, what age it is. But you have to be ready for the expense that is involved with it. And you don't want to scare anybody off. And there are a lot of nonprofit places and, going through your costs where you know what you're getting into. And I don't think a lot of people do know that. It's kind of, they come in and they're like, wait, I've got to come in. They come in with a puppy or a kitten and oh, wait, I've got to come back. I thought it was all done. They got it. They said it's all up to date. Well, no, we've got to keep going until they're 16 weeks of age to get all their vaccines. And then you talk about spaying and neutering. If they're not from a shelter, usually they'll do that ahead of time.
Yeah, I think that part is pretty overwhelming and pretty shocking,
Yeah.
right? I remember, when Zach and I were younger and we got our first, we always had multiple animals because that's just who we are, right? But I remember, and then I was like, oh my gosh, you go in and it'd be $500 or $300. And I was like,
Yep.
this is crazy. Like, what do I do? How do I do this? And it's those things that you don't think about, because you got your free pet, right? You got
Right.
your free puppy.
Or people will also like extensively research, like breeders, right? They spend hours looking to find like the perfect pet, right? They determine this pet and they've done all this research and they've sometimes flown across the country, or they've driven, you know, like 5 to 10 hours to get this really, really, really cute, you know, breed that they wanted. And then they come to the vet and they're like flabbergasted. That
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you just spent $3,000 on actually purchasing the dog, but gave no thought to the care afterwards.
And they're like, whoa, 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 whoa,
Mhm.
whoa. I think that's what would you say on average? I know it's going to depend, but on average, what would you say that just a quick estimate of first year of life for a new pet, assuming it's healthy, just shots and visits and things like that? What would you say?
So I would, so let's say you get a puppy at 8 weeks. You know, that's a very typical age for separating from the mom. They're typically ready to go to their new home. We see them 3 to 4 times after that.
3 to 4 times, yeah. Till they're at 16 weeks of age, they have to be 16 to get their last vaccines for them to be effective.
Right. So then, I mean, you're looking at probably, I would say, on a healthy pet, minimum of $600 to $900 in that first year. That's
Mhm.
probably conservative.
Yeah, it's conservative, yeah.
That's before it's spay or neuter, right?
That's before spay or neuter. That is just simply, you know, the doctor visit. It's just like with a newborn baby. That's how I try and relate a lot of things to human medicine, because people understand that a little bit more.
Mhm.
It's like a baby, you know, like a human baby. They can't just come in and get the shots. They do need to see the doctor, because what do you discover sometimes as they grow, like heart murmurs?
Yeah.
You just need to make sure that they're actually developing as they're supposed to in a healthy way. And people are just really surprised. So I would say right around probably that 600 to 900, depending on where you are in the country, what your
Yeah.
vet recommends. And that's before prevention.
Does obviously I know pet insurance is a big thing right now, right? Like it's really big, and it was interesting. One of my financial reps, she was speaking to a president of a big insurance company. He was like, "I wish I could get into that world. Do you realize that it's like a $23 billion world that's growing at like 25% every single year?" And so obviously in the financial world, that's a big conversation, but in your world, I can imagine it's really changed things. Um, from the pet insurance perspective, does that cover like wellness checks and things like that as well? Or does it just depend? Or is it mostly?
They're different plans, so it depends on the plan that the owner chooses. I always tell them to go and look at the plans, and at least if they're wavering on should they get it, should they not, I say at least get it for a sick plan to
Uh-huh.
cover those unexpected expenses. That they're just, I mean, I have a friend that has this great dog. They bought it, they researched it, they bought it, and the dad was saying the other day, he's like, this thing, he's been sick ever since we've gotten him, and they spent thousands of dollars because he's got a very unusual condition that's taken us a little while to diagnose. Um, so if you have that sick plan in place, and there are different insurance agencies too, some better than others.
Right.
It's a little different, obviously, with animal medicine, because they have to pay out of pocket. So they have to have some kind of coverage, you know, a credit card or whatever.
Because they get reimbursed.
Yeah, to get reimbursed, to take it, that can be an issue, but at least they know that that money, the majority of it will come back to them if you have a good insurance agency.
Yeah. Shawn knows the story, but my oldest graduated college. She already had one dog that she had rescued, and she graduated college and decided she needed another one. And we're like, no, 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 no. And so she went to the pound and she got this really cute, adorable puppy. And thankfully she got pet insurance, because ultimately the dog has he leaked all the time pee, right? And he had to have all of that interior stuff rerouted, and it's fine and he's great, but that was like a $10,000 surgery that if she didn't have pet insurance. And thankfully, honestly, she also is the one that got him, because who knows, right, what somebody else would have done. But yeah, it's a good thing that they're really cute, right? Because they are expensive.
It's true. And people are flabbergasted, because they just think insurance is going to cover everything, and pet insurance they will not cover like a pre-existing condition, and even like they would even consider like ear infections. If you've had an ear infection in 18 months, the pet insurance likes to call it like a recurring, like a chronic condition. So they're very particular too. So it isn't necessarily like the end all be all, but it is super helpful for like those unexpected illnesses or
Yeah,
injuries.
surgeries are a
mhm.
huge
Yeah.
thing, foreign body.
Yeah, puppies in particular, they like to eat stuff. Like we've seen some crazy things, and I mean, they just keep doing it, you know.
Over and over and over. So puppies are expensive. Are kittens as expensive as puppies in the beginning, or is it about the same starting out?
It may be a little bit cheaper, but I mean, we consider them, they're both infant animals. We
Yeah.
we do the same kind of schedule. It's just different services that medical things that they need.
So let's say that I want to skip the puppy stage and I want to skip the puppy expenses. And so I adopt a dog that's a year or two and it's fully vetted or whatever. What does it look like just in the young adult years? I know as they get older it can be more expensive, but assuming, just healthy animal, what should I expect just on a regular basis, expenses with my animal? Obviously, I know food and things like that, but what else should I think about?
Like if you were gonna budget for just for a pet, and let's say they're kind of like now in that adult, which is kind of
Yeah.
like 2 to 6, 2 to 7 is like the adult years. I would say you want to budget probably around $1,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
A year?
A
Yeah.
year.
Okay.
We like to see them twice a year if possible. Once a year is very important.
Yeah.
And whatever vaccines according to their lifestyle. And we like to do blood work. And then the other thing is prevention is a huge thing. Heartworm and flea and tick prevention here in the South is imperative. And you have to budget for that as well.
Is that included in that 1,000, or would that make it a little more expensive?
A little bit more.
You probably hit right around there.
Okay.
Because again, it really depends on, like you should do your research finding a vet. Again, we focus on quality medicine, so we are always going to give you like the gold standard. There are, low cost vaccine clinics that you could go to. So if it was really an issue, you could get yourself, I think you could find a way to really keep your pet healthy within that $1,000 a year. And that's assuming again that your pet is healthy and is just coming for,
To have all the other things.
Yeah, vaccines and keeping them up to date and keeping them healthy.
We were talking before this show started. So we have 3 dogs. We have a lab, a pit bull, and a Jack Russell. So great little mix of crazy, right? And have always had multiple dogs. But we were talking earlier about how much we spend monthly on our animals, and we spend quite a bit, and not because we like super pamper them. I mean, they're very well taken care of and have a great life and live inside and all that, but we travel a lot too. So I think that's a cost that you don't hear or you don't really think about, right? It's like, okay, now I'm leaving. I think it might be a little easier if you had a cat, right? You could pop in and change the litter box and give them some food. But dogs, they've got to go out 3 or 4 times a day, and they need to move their body and all of that fun stuff. So that's an expense that I think a lot of people don't think about either. And also not just an expense, but planning. I'm sure if my dog sitter sees this, she will
it is a good point. Like here we do have a pet resort side.
Okay.
And people like to come because, when your pet is here staying with us, they do have access to veterinary care during our normal business hours. But same thing, there's a lot of sticker shock when people want to come bring their pet. They're surprised at the cost of boarding, right? And then they're also surprised that your pet has to be fully up to date and healthy.
Right.
And just again, keeping all of those things in mind. And it's for the safety of your pet and every other pet that you're up to date on your vaccines.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also planning, right? Like you can't be quite as spontaneous
Yeah.
because you got to make sure that somebody is going to be there to, whether it's at a boarding facility or somebody coming to your home or whatever. What are some of the other unforeseen circumstances? I want to say this clearly to everyone. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I have three dogs, right? Like I love animals. I think you should all have a farm full of them, but I do want you to know that they're expensive, right? They're not just cute little things you throw some food out occasionally. So, what are some other maybe unforeseen circumstances or things that just be aware of?
Like,
Well,
how much time do you have?
yeah. I mean, one side note, just not even medical expenses, people don't also realize the size. Cat's a cat. I mean, we do have bigger cats, but dogs,
Mhm.
things are dosed on size. And so the bigger the animal,
Mhm.
the more expensive it is. So you love this huge, Irish wolfhound, but it's going to need, if it boards a suite, the medicine that we prescribe is going to be more expensive because it's dosed on the weight of the animal. So that's one thing that's pretty important that I don't think people realize
Yeah,
until
they should think about it.
they're in. But things like, allergies are a big thing. I mean, just your basic vomiting and diarrhea. We don't know why. We don't always go down that path. We just want to get it better if we can. And sometimes they respond quickly to medical intervention, and sometimes it takes more diagnostics and blood work and x-rays. Other thing, I mean, just like we were saying, foreign body surgery, like your young dog has eaten toys, like your kids' toys
Yeah.
on the ground, or big thing is underwear.
I was like, my dog.
Uh-huh.
He
Yeah, and
almost died because he almost lost all of his air. And I was like, what's going on
yeah,
with
we had
underwear?
one that he had just come in and they rescued this dog from a farm, border collie, and he came in and got neutered. And that was an expense. They had one other dog. They had just lost their older dog. So they're getting this dog and they're all excited. He was a bit more than they expected. So he got through his neuter, and during recovery, because he's so crazy, we had him on medications to keep him calm to recover. He ate like 5 pounds of carpet and had to go and have emergency surgery. So this free rescue
Yeah.
was turned into
Free is never free, right?
never
Whether it's pets or anything else,
yeah.
Mhm.
free is never free. That's
Yeah,
funny.
the allergies are probably the number one thing that, I mean, it's just like, again, with the human, there's no cure. We can only treat and
Right.
try and like get you to a point where you're at like a good maintenance level. But that is probably the number one thing that
Yeah.
drives the clients crazy,
Hmm.
because like, I don't understand. I don't understand. I just came in, but it's ongoing.
Right. It's forever.
Yeah, we get a lot of
Um,
kidney disease, liver.
yeah, as they get older, when their bodies start to, shut down a little bit, then they start having other diseases, metabolic things going on. Other thing is musculoskeletal issues, and we have a lot of Labradors and Goldens, and I mean mixed breeds that come in and they've torn their ACL.
Oh,
And that is only a surgical repair. I mean, you either live with it being torn and they learn how to manage, and then they have to be on medicine for comfort. And, so they don't have to have surgery, but that's the only way to actually repair it. And that's, you're talking going to an orthopedic specialist and, the whole nine
crazy.
yards. Back surgery on small dogs. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you start getting breed specific.
Yeah.
It's like if you get a German Shepherd, they're probably gonna have issues with their hips.
Yeah.
All of our doodle friends all have allergies and skin issues.
The
Um,
hypoallergenic dogs have
Yes,
allergies.
right.
yeah, yes. It's like the little dogs with the longer backs always
Flat
end up.
discs.
Yeah, always. Yeah, and then the tiny, like you get like a French bulldog, they can't breathe.
That's a big thing. The Frenchies, because they're so popular and people don't
Mhm.
realize they have what we call stenotic nares, so small nose holes, and they have a palate that's really their soft palate, so it's covering up their trachea, and those usually need to be repaired. We usually do it during the time of their spay or neuter, and that's an unforeseen expense.
Right. Well, all these expenses out there. So at best, if you're going to get a pet, you need to budget at least $200 a month just for regular annual maintenance,
Yeah.
medications, heartworm, things like that. And if you can't afford that, then you probably shouldn't get a pet because you can't take care of it properly, right?
Correct.
Mhm.
I want to open it up if anyone has any questions. If you don't have questions, then we will just continue talking. Or if anybody has any funny stories to tell, I will open it up. So just unmute yourself and interject whenever you're ready. I have a funny story to tell you of it's fun. I'm like, Shawn already knows the story. Shawn already knows the story, but our lab Charlie is a goofball, and he really is a goofball. And then my youngest daughter is the only one still at home because everybody else is in school other places, right? And so she called the other day and she's like, Mom, something happened. Charlie's tail's bleeding and it's going everywhere. And I'm like, in my mind, because I'd never experienced, I was like, really, like how hard, like how bad could this be, right? If you guys have never experienced
I
happy
have.
tail,
Yeah, happy tail.
oh my
Mhm.
goodness. So
Yeah.
Zach and I turn around. She's out on the porch, thank gosh, right? So Zach and I turn around because we're just going to grab some lunch, and we pull in and we go out to the back porch. And I'm like, Harper, what happened? She was like, well, I accidentally closed his tail on the door, but it's just the tip of it. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, surely it'll be fine. And every time, he's like painting a Picasso, right? Like he's just like, every time he wags, it's like blood splatter everywhere. And that's probably been 3 months ago, literally. And we would wrap it, and our vet showed us how to do the wrap, with the tails sticking out and wrapping it all over and all of this stuff. And remember, we travel a lot, right? So Charlie decided he was going to always eat his wrap off. So that would happen. So then I'm not quite sure where that went, probably in his stomach because that's the dog that he is, right? And then, but every time, like the inside of my house looked like a war zone, the outside of the house, and you could never heal it. It was crazy. So my vet told me there was this contraption. I posted some of it to social media because it was just funny, and it held the tail, and it was like a harness on his body, and that was the only way that it would heal because it was the only way he could not eat it. But I would still get texts from the pet sitter when we're out of town, and he's falling all over it because he's decided that he's trying to come out of it, right? And she's like, what do I do? I'm like, I don't know. I decided to have my house repainted inside during this time.
Yeah.
That was brilliant, right? I thought we were done with it, but we already had the painter on the schedule. So like we just turn around and like literally like new blood. I'm like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so no one wants happy tail at all.
No.
Not that it's I mean, maybe it could be a major issue. I don't know. Ours thankfully wasn't, and I think we're at the end of it, but it is very inconvenient.
Yeah. It's like another one of those. We had a situation where I was up at the front, and one of the vet assistants came and said, very like calmly and quietly, hey, like Shawn, Dr. Joseph needs you in the back. I said, oh, okay. So I just go bebopping back thinking, it's just a normal, they just need me to like help hold or something. It's same thing. I walked in, it looked like a murder scene. We had two cream goldens. One had like ripped it had gotten its nail in the kennel because they had been there for like grooming. Both of these white dogs were red because they were covered in blood. There was blood all over the floor. Dr. Joseph's holding on to one, the other person, and it took me like 30 seconds for my head to process. Like,
what's happening?
I was like, what? Like, do we need to call 911? Like, where are we at today? But that's just like it's a typical day.
I was going to say, I'm sure you guys have some pretty amazing stories.
Yeah.
Nothing boring. Sorrel, you have a question?
Yes, I do. I'm about to get another dog because my puppy of 14 years left us about a year and a half ago. And so every time I see another dog, I go, oh my God, this is my dog. But what I'm getting now is that, getting a dog is not a trivial thing. It's like having a baby. You plan it, you plan for it, you budget for it. And I want my dog to be the healthiest ever. If you were going to point to the breed that is by far the healthiest, that will have the least amount of suffering throughout its life.
Mhm.
And what would you point to?
There is none.
Yeah.
It is, yeah, it's a crapshoot.
It is
Yeah,
really.
you can
Oh my
never,
God.
no, I would never steer somebody against toward one breed versus the other. You have to
Okay.
go in your heart with what you want, the size and, the temperament, and deal with what you get.
Deal with what you get.
Yeah.
All right.
Just make sure
Sorry.
that
I wish
when
I
you
had the
choose that breed,
miracle,
right?
miracle dog breed, but
Yeah, if we cracked that, we'd have a breeding facility. If
yeah.
we could determine, which one.
Well, I'm going to flip that coin and go for it.
There you go.
I was going to say, I guess in that situation, when you make a decision, then you just research that breed to know
Right. Like go in with eyes wide open.
what issues they might have and
Yeah.
how to best
Yeah.
prevent them, and
Yeah.
manage it from the beginning would be
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
best option.
Right. Well, and
I
with
guess the
being a
other thing
pupper-
I'm hearing is get the dog trained. The last thing you want is a dog that eats 5 pounds of carpet.
Can you train it out
That's
of that?
preventable.
Can you train that out of it?
I think you can. I have a very good friend from the puppy PhD, something like that. They train dogs, and so I'm going to go there too.
For sure. And get the pet insurance, at least for the sick stuff.
That's
So
right.
cover
I
your
mean, that is definitely a part, like training your dog. This has nothing to do with finances, but we do joke. We hear certain things and we know what they actually mean. Like if you bring in your 3-year-old dog and they're like, oh, he still acts like a puppy. We're like, oh, he's not trained. Or, when they say, oh, it's playful nips. And it's like, no, we're going to get bit. Like we know. So that is just that's another conversation.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that in another Monday or another morning huddle. But it is also like a very important counterpart to having just a trained dog.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, Dr. Dianna and Shawn, thank you so much. I thought you were going to give me the magic breed, but nah.
Sorry.
Dang. Well, thank you both so much for joining us and taking a few minutes of your morning to give us some education and teach the world about pets and the true cost of pet ownership. As we leave today, I want to leave you guys with our 8 tenets that we talk about every Monday, every day, every week, right, of the daily huddle. First of all, love, laugh out loud, stress less, eat mostly plant-based, take care of your body, give, sleep, move, and take that pause between your stimulus and response. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Thank you guys for joining us today, and we will see you again tomorrow, same time, same place on the Daily Huddle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I forget we don't have the exit music either. So Jack is on though. Maybe he could